China spoke before the UN Security Council and expressed some great moral clarity about the Israeli attacks using pagers in Lebanon. So let's hear from the great human rights abuser, China, and then we will contrast that with the nice white American boy, Matthew Miller, at the State Department. So we'll see who prioritizes human rights more. Let's first hear from the Chinese at the UN.
Thousands of communications devices in Lebanon, including pagers and two-way radios, were detonated remotely and simultaneously. The explosions caused thousands of civilian casualties. China hereby registers profound shock and grave concern over this development. Children playing in the streets lost their eyes. Mothers shopping in supermarkets had their limbs maimed. Doctors on their way to work were critically injured. These and other harrowing scenes are distressing beyond imagination. Remotely detonating communications devices in indiscriminate attacks causing mass civilian casualties and panic in society is unheard of in history. This act is, without a doubt, a gross violation of a country's sovereignty and security, and a blatant breach of international law, particularly international humanitarian law. Is an act that tramples on human lives with unconscionable callousness. The attacks were so outrageously brutal and atrocious that they deserve nothing less than condemnation in the strongest terms.
All right, so there's China. Nothing less than condemnation in the strongest terms. Now let's go to our own State Department, Count Smirkula, as he's called in popular circles. We call him Morlock over here, Matthew Miller. Here he is, asked about the pager attacks.
I wanted to pin down some of the basics again on the exploding pagers. I mean, is it still your position that you are not saying publicly who you believe carried out these attacks?
I don't have any comment on it at all.
And is there any reason that you wouldn't say what your assessment is of who carried these out?
I just don't have any comment on it at all.
Okay. 2 days ago, you said the US was not aware of this.
Smile. Look at the shit-eating grin on this guy's face.
Still accurate?
Yeah, it's funny.
The statement I made on 2 days ago was absolutely accurate.
That you didn't know about the incident in advance?
Correct.
Okay. Because, I mean, there has been some reporting that there was a call from the Israelis to say that something was going to happen in Lebanon on Tuesday. Do you have any comment on that report?
The statement I made on Tuesday was 100% accurate.
Okay, and just to follow up on the point about targeting and international humanitarian law, I mean, presumably the State Department is aware of the amended Protocol 2 of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, which prohibits the use of booby traps or other devices in the form of harmless portable objects. Is that something you're taking into account when you're assessing and gathering information on this?
So we take into account all of the relevant provisions of international humanitarian law when it assesses, when we assess incidents of this type and other incidents throughout this conflict. I don't pronounce judgment on those from this podium, but those are the types of things that we look at. Yes, absolutely.
And given, I mean, just to reiterate the point, I mean, thousands of explosions, 2 children killed. You know, we've seen explosions in public places, in grocery stores, on the streets, healthcare workers among casualties. I mean, does that feel to you like a targeted attack that falls within the remit of international humanitarian law?
So I'm not going to talk about feelings here. We deal in factual assessments of law.
That's what he just asked you. He didn't ask you how you feel about it. He knows you're a bloodless psychopath. If you weren't, you'd have resigned from this post about 10 months ago.
Has anyone ever tried opening the drapes and letting in the sunlight while he's at that podium?
Yeah, right, exactly. Anybody ever think of bringing like some garlic into the room? Yeah. Come in. That guy there should come in. Who's the guy? Who's our favorite guy? The new journal, the film noir guy. What's his name? Matt Lee. You know, our guy, Matt Lee there, the guy with the crinkly newspaper with the real old school
Matt
guy.
Lee, yeah.
He should bring a piece of garlic bread in there next time.
Run up on him with a mirror.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
There's no reflection.
Yeah.
The type of assessments that we conduct over time where we gather information and make those assessments based on the facts, based on the law. Those assessments are ongoing. It's not to speak to this incident or any specific incident, but those are things we take very seriously.
Okay, so you just saw there. Yeah. You just saw China speak with just crystal clear vision on this, call it for what it is.
Right.
And then you see our State Department, the guy has a shit-eating grin on his face for the first few questions. Only after they interrogate him does he give any answer at all. That's the face of the United States when this subject comes up versus China. Now, look, I'm not a utopian thinker. I don't think any system is beyond criticism because I don't think any system succeeds indefinitely over time. I think all systems fail over time, and so I would not defend China as a utopia. But this is just one of many examples where you look and you say, who the fuck are we to be lecturing anybody about human rights?
Right. Yeah. When you really get your head out of the way that we're all conditioned and trained in this society, it's just absurd, the idea that we're the good guys in this story. We're responsible for the deaths of millions upon millions of people in the post-war era, not to mention pre-post-war. So, the idea that that China or Russia are unique and existential evils. And this is why, when you ask people who are not brainwashed by our media around the world, before Gaza, what's the greatest threat to peace in the world? None of them say Russia. None of them say China. They always say the United States. Majorities always say the United States. There's a reason for that. And it is only because we are such an arrogant, ignorant country, so far up its own ass, that the response of that by Americans, and also very propagandized population, would be, well, they just don't understand. They just don't understand. I mean, that's the assumption that really in the Kool-Aid Americans make. Well, they're ignorant there. Those people are ignorant. They don't really understand how things work. We do. We do here. They don't get it. Yeah, Americans, some of the most ignorant people in the world in regards to history, in regards to languages, in regards to geography. No. We've got a better handle on our role in the world than the people who are actually impacted by it do.
Please clap.